Well, good morning, everyone. My name is MightyStream, brought to you by Hope Through Navigation with the H.O.O.D Recovery Services Program. H.O.O.D stands for Hope Offered on Demand, and I am creating content of the Just for Today in a meditation for you so that you will be able to, after this, access the dates that you need and listen to them. I'm enjoying doing this. I hope that you're excited. I want to go ahead and do the April 11th Just for Today meditation with you. Let me share the screen. And here we are. Okay, April 11th, a closed mind. A new ideal cannot be grafted onto a closed mind. Open-mindedness leads us to the very insights that have eluded us during our lives. Basic text, page 96. We arrived in NA at the lowest point in our lives. We just about run out of ideals. What we needed most when we got here were new ideals, new ways of living, shared from the experience of people who'd seen those ideals work. Yet, our closed minds prevented us from taking in the very ideals we needed to live. Denial keeps us from appreciating just how badly we really need new ideals and new direction. By admitting our powerlessness and recognizing how truly unmanageable our lives have become, we allow ourselves to see how much we need what NA has to offer. Self-dependence and self-will can keep us from admitting even the possibility of the existence a power greater than ourselves. Let me reread that. Self-dependence and self-will can keep us from admitting even the possibility of the existence of a power greater than ourselves. However, when we admit the sorry state self-will has gotten us into, we open our eyes and our minds to new possibilities. When others tell us of a power that has brought sanity to their lives, we begin to believe that such a power may do the same for us. A tree stripped of its branches will die unless new branches can be grafted into its trunk. In the same way, addiction stripped us of whatever direction we had. To grow or even to survive, we must open our minds and allow new ideals to be grafted unto our lives. Just for today, I will ask my higher power to open my mind to the new ideals of recovery. I like that. Let me take a drink really quick. I'm super thirsty and we'll get right into this. Awesome. I like this. I like this. This is about having a closed mind. This is about denial, knowing that you need something and refusing to take the options that are presented to you that will give you clearly what it is that you need. So denial can be deadly, right? So if we are not willing to, I don't want to say just acknowledge that we need help, but acknowledge that the help is available to us and that we have a problem, right? To begin with, right? That's the first step. We admitted that we were powerless over the disease of addiction and that our lives have become unmanageable. So a lot of the beginning steps of breaking this denial is having the willingness to admit that there's an issue. And that's with anything. It wouldn't matter if it was drugs, sex, money, gambling, it just really wouldn't matter what it was. This is a spiritual principle of having an open mind versus having a closed mind that can benefit anyone that has anything that they've ever struggled with. The principles here are universal. These principles are applicable to every individual that is listening. You have to admit that you have a problem in order for you to even consider the possibilities of the answers being presented to you. We know that self-dependence and self-will can keep us from admitting that there's a possibility of something greater than ourselves. The discourse here, it said that the meditation said an existence of a power greater than ourselves. I think that two people together are better than one person by themselves. That's why we suggest that when you do your step work, that you have another person to do that with, a sponsor, right? But every time you add another individual to the group itself gets stronger. And then you've heard that term, the weak link. Like sometimes there's a weak link, and the weak link is not necessarily like because of character defects or something that the person has. It just might be that person doesn't have the same need or desire to be a part of that group. They may be doing it perfunctorily, like they are just doing it out of habit, or they're doing it because they feel obligated and they really don't want to be there. Then that's a person that doesn't have the same level of commitment. And even if it is the weak link, the other links around it can strengthen it, be there to support it until they are able to, come up to speed on what's going on, right? So some of your sponsee networks, right? Your sponsor and sponsee networks, some of those people in there may not necessarily have the same passion that you have for recovery, but they're a part of the power greater than yourself, right? Because sometimes you need someone that you can gauge your own progress by. Not that you're doing better or worse than them, but you can say, okay, that is a trait that I just don't want. I don't want to have that lackadaisical attitude about doing step work. I just don't want to have that trait. And you can say, okay, I see how that looks on a person. I don't want that. I don't be cussing and swearing and acting like I'm super bad. And on the inside, I'm scared most of the time to even interact with people, right? I don't want that fake trait of pride. I don't want that. So it's helpful sometimes to be able to gauge yourself. When it comes to other people, you can kind of see where you are and where you need to be. And that's the only purpose that will ever serve. We don't want to be judgmental at all. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that sometimes this power greater than ourselves is going to include having to interact with other people, like we do in Narcotics Anonymous. You really pretty much can't get away from it. Even if you're just showing up for meetings, it's still this strength in numbers. And then it uses this example of a tree that has had its branches taken off. It's going to die. That tree is going to die unless somehow other branches are grafted in. And this is a very, other faiths use the same concept of being grafted into the vine, right? So it's not a new thought, but it is a farmer's thought, right? It's a harvester's thought, right? That if you're growing something and you go to cutting off the growth, you have to figure out how to continue to get that that tree to grow, and you have to put new branches into it. You have to know the process of grafting things in. It's much like, to me, it's much like a person that gets a transplant of a kidney or a lung, or even a heart transplant. It's new and it replaces what was dead and dying, right? Non-functional, but it still has to go through a season of being grafted into that person's body. It has to go through a season where the body doesn't reject the new organ. And it's the same thing with us, right? We're lopping off the part of our active using, our disease of addiction, but we have to replace it with positivity, with healthy things. You know, a lot of times people, this wasn't my story, but there are people that I know that depending on what type of drug they were using, they rarely even ate food. I mean, for them to even have a meal was, and they had energy to do whatever they needed to do because the drug gave it to them, right? They rarely ate. And when they did eat, they had gone so long without having a proper meal that their body would reject the food, right? Drawing more attention to the fact that they're actively using. They could not hold a meal down. They would have to, you know, have something small so that it wasn't so noticeable that they weren't able to eat anymore, right? Um, and so that's kind of like what I'm saying is that when we get clean, it takes time to introduce this new way of living to our physical, mental, spiritual, right, selves. It takes time. And sometimes you have to sip on milk or sip on juice or sip on warm water, room temperature water. Sometimes you have to sip, you have to take in nutrients of recovery slowly until you can not reject it so that you can move on to the meatier things. You can move on to things that have a little bit more substance and weight to them. And even then, when you move from the liquids to something that has more substance, I don't know why I'm on this vein. I think probably because I have a surgery tomorrow that I'm thinking about, you know, not being able to have any substance, just liquids today, right? And then that process of going back to eating, you don't just jump into the solids right away. And you definitely don't just jump into chewing on steak and potatoes and, you know, fish, and you don't jump into those meatier things right away. It takes time, and that's how it is in recovery. You go through the process of steps 1, 2, and 3, and you allow your consciousness to adjust slowly to these new spiritual principles that you're introducing into your life. And they're not just spiritual principles, you're introducing new people into your life, right? Getting to know them and them getting to know you. And sometimes there'll be differences, but you'll have the help of other people in the fellowship to help walk you through those differences so that it doesn't become a matter of you refusing to go to any meeting that this person is sitting in the rooms at. You're going to refuse yourself to have anything that resembles interacting with them. You don't want to be in the same room, on the same parking lot. You don't want to have anything to do with them, right? So we don't want that type of shock to happen to your recovery. And that's why it's important to have a network of people that you can turn to. You know, this and this that happened. I was wondering about, you know, how I should be responding because I'm really offended. Okay. Well, let's talk about how much power you want to give that interaction. Because if you develop a resentment can take you out. So, and it's like having a resentment, they say it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The only person that really hurts, truly, is yourself in your recovery. It makes you bitter, and not better, but it makes you bitter. Right. And so I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what this just for today is saying. I want to close it with this last statement. Just for today, I will ask my higher power to open my mind to the new ideals of recovery. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what are these new things that are being introduced to you that you're somewhat still resistant to. And how can you begin to take them in a manner that is palatable for you and will give you healthy living, nutritious living in a spiritual sense, right? So that is a beautiful just for today. I'm excited about that. I will release that on Monday morning, right before I go to the hospital. And I hope that you will have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Monday. I have no idea what my Monday is going to look like, but I do know that I will be back in touch with you very soon with the next Just for Today for Tuesday. You take care. Talk to you later.